King Lear for open stage theater fight choreography. I'm Matthew, this is Andy. We're going to be going over the scene where Steve, Albany? Or is he? Yeah, Albany blinds Glauster. Servant gets pissed about it, attacks Albany, kills him. Flavia gets pissed about that, jumps on Servant, strangles him. So yes, there's 4 different people getting hurt in this scene. Wait, 1, 2, 3. 3 people getting hurt in this scene. Initially, he will be playing Glauster. I will be one servant random guy. So we've got 2 servants on his arms, bringing him in. Mark will stop here and let the other servant bring him in the rest of the way. Mark, you're over here, you are unarmed. Other servant has a sword. Other servant takes Bruce, assists him to the ground. I think you guys already have that block. If not, I can help with it. Prones him out. We're at a diagonal angle. Hands over the back. Starts to tie him. He's going to be tied loosely so he can keep his hands flat because he will be laying on them. Starts to tie. Waves Mark over. Mark reluctantly comes over. Finishes helping tie. So now you've got one servant on this side. Mark's on this side. Mark, you will grab his hip and his shoulder and pull him towards you to roll him up. You will then move your left hand up to his shoulder, right hand goes to the neck to support his neck. You will help him to a seated position. Both hands, right arm under his shoulder, left arm can go to the elbow or on top of the shoulder. I recommend the top of the shoulder just because there's no chance of pulling it out. So Mark, you're on this side, other servant, you're on this side. You will rotate him, both of you will drag him back, and as soon as you get close to this block, you want to lay him down. The reason being, if we get too far and lay him down, we'll hit his head on the corner of the block. We don't want that. Once he's laid down, you will then drag him the rest of the way until he's in contact with the block. Both servants will then back up. Armed servant is that way. Mark, you're on this side. I don't know if that fits your current blocking. I'm doing this based off of whatever the heck I want to do this on. Steve will come from wherever on stage you were, and you will mount Glauster. You're going to be over his hips, your knees are on the ground, you're supporting yourself. You're not actually resting any weight on top of him. You're holding yourself up. You will lean forward. Bruce, you're laying backwards on your hands, so hopefully you've got them flat behind your back like this. Otherwise, if they're bound up or they're crossing, it's going to hurt. So that's why the binding is need to be loose. One hand will come up to the orbit of the eye. It's the bone above the eyelid. There, and you're going to use the pad of your thumb. You don't want to use the tip. A little bit of pressure, just enough that he can feel that you're there. No actual pressure because you can't break that bone if you put enough in, but we'd rather break the bone than the eye. So you'll do one hand with contact on that. The other hand is on the side here to block it, and you make this face. Bruce, you will kick your feet accordingly. Other hand now blocks. Left hand comes to the orbit of the eye. As soon as the second one is blinded, you're going to be getting up to get your ass kicked by Mark. So we are now switching positions. He is now Steve. I am now Mark. Mark, as soon as he's doing that second stabbing or second blinding, you decide you've had enough of this, you didn't want to be involved in the first place. You cross over to this other servant. Other servant has a sword on his hip. He will grab his sheath, holding onto it securely. Mark, you will put your hand on his sword over here. You will put your hand on his shoulder and push back. Really, you will put your hand on his shoulder and he will back up as if he has been pushed. And servant, you will pull the sheath off the sword. Mark, you don't really have to pull the sword. You now have the sword. I don't know what that servant does. He wanders off. Steve, you see this commotion happening behind you, him crossing and grabbing the sword. You get up over Glauster. You make sure you take your left foot and come back over Glauster's legs as opposed to your right foot coming up over his head. So you're now on the opposite side of Glauster. We don't want you tripping and falling on his head. Bruce, laying on the ground here, being blinded, you're going to shrimp up and put your back up against that block and whimper and stay out of the way because we don't want you to get hurt. You back up, you see that your servant is rebelling. Mark, you walk forward, overhand attack, one-handed. You see you have the option of blocking either way. You can either block across this way or this way. It doesn't matter. But overhead block, Mark, you're aiming for his shoulder. So that way, if he misses the block, you don't hit him in the head. Okay? So that's a block. You disengage. You come across to the side. He blocks again sideways. This is a very short fight. Mark, you pull your sword back against him. Keep your sword flat, actually. Pull it back. Let's get that nice grasping sound. As soon as you disengage, he brings his sword up to attack. So see, you're going to attack him. Mark just slips his blade out, attaches it to you. It's kind of like a slap to the belly. And we want to slap flat, push in a little bit. Steve wraps around it and falls down there in Steve. Okay? Okay. Now, switching positions again. This is now Mark. He has stabbed Steve, and he's backed him over here. Flavia, you, I think, are over here, if I'm wrong, wherever you come from. As soon as Mark starts his attack on Steve, and it's a quick fight there, you're pulling off your tie, you're coming up to this side, and the minute he backs up off of Steve, you're going to jump up on his back. It's going to look like this. Both knees up, you're riding him, you're holding on with your legs, still bent forward. You take your claw, you drape it down over his neck. He will bring, you grab the right side strut to bring it up. He brings his hand in, palm facing in, Mark. Then you now have two ends of the tie. You pull, but you don't actually pull. You just do enough to pull off tension. You squeeze as if you're squeezing him. As soon as you're low enough to ground where your feet are on the ground, you get off of him. Because he's going to have to lay himself out, and he doesn't need your extra weight on top. I know it's not a lot, Flavia, you're tiny, but any extra helps. Strangle, strangle, strangle. Pretend you're strangling. Don't actually do anything except keep tension off. And then tighten your hands. The more you squeeze your hands, the more effort it looks like you're putting into it. Mark, you're going to play dead, so I just have to make you done. I don't know if there's a blackout after that, but something happens after that. Walking around. And stop.